Hey there. Good afternoon. This is Ivan Mladenovich with your favorite podcast, Trust and Adjust. I am here with Dilraj Kahai, a good friend of mine and owner of a large software solutions business, and we're talking about mergers and acquisitions. Dilraj, can you tell us a little bit about your adventure about working through a potential acquisition of your business and subsequently deciding to go back into that business, diving to grow it further?
Thank you, Ivan. Ivan brought me in here because I'm the one that doesn't trust but only adjusts. And so he figured he'd get one half from me and then he'll get the trust from the other four mates that he's got. My mergers and acquisitions business, it's interesting because you work your entire life with the idea of selling, and when the time comes, you start getting second thoughts about what exactly are your goals in life and what are your priorities, and all of a sudden your work becomes a really valuable commodity to your life, and you start second guessing yourself on if you're ready to let your baby go, and is it going to the right people, and is your team going to be fine? And a lot of that happened to me, and I realized I still needed to be an entrepreneur, and I needed to be there with this company until I had it exactly ready.
You talk about the right people and like the right potential buyer. I imagine ultimately this business will be sold or will have some sort of a merger acquisition type event. What does a really good acquirer look like, or what does a really good investor look like to you that you would even consider doing this again?
I think a really good acquirer is someone where either our business is the platform in which we can uh, acquire complementary businesses and really grow that halo into something far larger than what we are, or we fit into this hub and spoke model with another platform play where our acquisition makes a lot of sense to them, both in terms of the innovation we're bringing that they don't have currently, but also the footprint they have that we can upsell into, and then how our teams work together. A lot of times we don't pay enough attention to the team chemistry, and a lot of these acquisitions don't go well because a small company being bought into a large global SI, there's a problem with the way they adjust with each other, and as a small business owner, that's a priority for me.
Talk about small business ownership and scale. Um, what kind I think the right question is more around like what criteria are you looking for in this buyer? What makes them a trustworthy buyer? What makes them a buyer or acquirer that are right for your team, right for your culture? What are the qualities that you look for when you're assessing and making that decision?
You know, I never paid that much attention to it until I started going through the process. And I realized I really had to trust the process over there, because the first thing I was thinking of was what are the terms, what is the LOI, multiples, and then you realize that if the buyer doesn't have the same plan on where you want to go in the market and how you want to penetrate the market and what your complementary product partners need to be in order to penetrate the market. And if you're not gelling on that, but they have a plan and they think you'll fit into it, and you don't really pay attention to that, you could be off in your strategy with them, and it could quickly kind of be a problem. Um, I'll give you an example. We are doing intensive asset management for public sector, and we believe with AI, there's a real possibility of bringing in large language models to transit agencies where they can then really understand where they are compared to the other transit agencies around the world with their vendors, how they negotiate. And there's a bunch of stuff that AI can do to really take this managing of their assets to another level. If the buyer really likes kind of what we're doing in the public sector, but is a commercial buyer that is very focused on oil and gas and utilities and pharmaceutical industry, they're going to see our people as a great resource. They're going to see what we do as a great resource, but it doesn't quite fit the sort of competitive landscape of how we're going to penetrate. And all of a sudden, we've got a little bit of apples and oranges over there. So it's critical to understand that.
What about you, the entrepreneur? Like after you go through this event and presumably you would sell a majority stake in this business or a substantial stake in this business, how does this affect you as an entrepreneur and your ability to either perpetuate with the business or continue to participate, or do you just walk away because you no longer can be that? Or like to me, at least in growing my business being an entrepreneur is my identity, right? Like after I exited my business, I attempted to work inside the organization that acquired mine, and I quickly realized, and they quickly realized that I wasn't a great employee, and I wasn't I don't want to say I wasn't a good team player, but I'm used to playing by my own rules, and I'm most successful when I'm allowed to create my own rules. So I wonder what your universe looks like post-acquisition as from the lens of you as an entrepreneur.
You know this because you are in the tribe, but entrepreneurs are sort of a really weird subset of humanity. We are the kind of people who can't sleep at night. We are the kind of people who have huge amounts of doubt, self-doubt about ourselves. We have insecurities about whether we're good enough, we're perfectionists. There are so many things that make up, in my mind, an entrepreneur that makes us successful. And it's that drive with all these issues that keep us awake at night that make us actually really good entrepreneurs. So the first thing that happens when you sell your company, and I have a feeling you've gone through this, but the first thing that happens is all of that innate entrepreneur DNA starts coming up, and you're like, well, what am I going to do next? How am I going to validate myself if I'm not an entrepreneur? That's sort of an identity of ours. So I don't think you can take an entrepreneur out of entrepreneurship, even if they've sold the company. It's always in our minds. We're always trying to think of what, when we're talking to people, we're listening to them and thinking about the ideas they've got and seeing how we can make that scalable. That's just what I do without even realizing I'm doing it. It's a little paradox riddle I do, and I suspect you do the same.
I do. There was definitely an element of mourning after selling my business, because there's an element of death and grief that happens associated with losing that part of identity. But equally so, it's equally as hard once you go through a liquidation event or some sort of financial event that you take a pause, and the pause actually creates a little bit of latency and a little bit of quiet. And it took quite a bit, some time for me to sort of identify what the next thing is. But truthfully, it always had to be entrepreneurship again, yeah. Right? There wasn't an option of just like settling down and relaxing. Like the craving of building something and growing something just is there. In thinking about, sort of pose a hypothetical scenario, you get the perfect deal. Mm-hmm. You execute on the deal, and the deal has some sort of a term that you're in the business. That term is now over. Now you're officially out. Like you're no longer a member of your business. What's the first thing that you do? Like what's the thing that you crave doing post-exit, where you have unlimited time, potentially unlimited resources? What's the thing that you crave to do today that you're excited to do next after exiting your business?
For me, I think it has to do with leaving a legacy in social justice. I think that's really important to me. And it's not out of some huge generosity of spirit. There's actually a lot of ego behind it. I want to be known more than, oh, he came here and he made a lot of money, or he did whatever, he was a success. I want to be known out of my ego, out of making a change in the world in the way that I want to make a change. And so it would be forming or joining or creating some means where there are some elements of change I can make in society. And if I can use whatever little money I have to do that, that would be something deeply satisfying to me.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us on Trust and Adjust. This has been a wonderful episode.
Thank you, Ivan. Such a pleasure.